everyone, and welcome to our coffee break of this month. I can't believe it's March already. So I don't know if you've got coffee, I've got water, but we're excited to come together. Hey, Teresa, we're excited to come together this morning and just learn and share and spend just a little bit of time together. Let me go ahead and share my screen because before we jump in, I always like to take a moment and number one, thank our members of Champion Circle for their sponsorship. So let me get that up here. There we go. Before I talk about Champion Circle, though, I do want to introduce our team for those who may not be very familiar. Our president and CEO is Dr. Frederica Singletary. Our fractional CFO is Jackie Jordan. Our fractional CHRO is LaCosta Moore. Our senior director of marketing, communications, and engagement is Courtney Martin. I did not introduce myself, but I think that's because I already know all of you. But for those I may not know, my name is Dr. Kitiana Lowe, and I'm the Director of Programs and Events here at Webeck ORV. Those who are certified, I'm sure will be very familiar with the next few folks who are on our certification team, led by our Director of Certification and Outreach, Colleen Rudisell, our Certification Manager, Robbie Moore, and I'll drop all the way down here to the end. We do have a Certification Specialist, Anita Steele, as well, who rounds out our certification team. And then our corporate side, we have Devin Davis, who is our Corporate Engagement Manager, and then our administrative assistant is Morgan McDonald. And so we are a mighty team who work diligently to do all things that support you in terms of you being a business owner for certification, programs, and events. And then the Champion Circle that I was speaking of before, these are our members of Champion Circle, which is one of our sponsorship opportunities for this year. And sorry, letting somebody else in the room. So we definitely want to thank all of our Champion Circle sponsors. If your logo is not listed here, that's okay. There'll be plenty other opportunities to be able to support Webeck ORV, like for Catch the Wave and some of the other things that we do. So as WBEs, if you are interested in being a sponsor, you can always contact Robbie Moore and he can provide you with a sponsorship deck to let you know all of the opportunities that we have. We also have a copy of that deck on our website. When I get a spare moment, I will drop that link into the chat just in case anybody's interested in doing that as well. And so without further ado, I would like to go ahead and introduce our facilitator for today, Catherine Lane Klein, who is the principal owner and CEO of Catherine Lane Klein, LLC. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us today, and we are excited to have you share.
It is my absolute pleasure to be here today. And I will also add that the LLC is new because last year I did sell my business. Um, so I just had to kind of put a shingle out just for other things that I wanted to do because I was like, I don't know what I want to do next, but let's just make it a business. The reason I wanted to really talk to everyone today is because, having sold my business, I was realizing that I could do a couple of things. One, I could just retire, or I could share what I knew. So one of the things that I did was I wrote a book. I found a lot of things that people were asking me were very repetitive, and the book is called The Rules of the Game for Women in Business because I determined while I was 20 years as my own CEO that men have been in the business longer, so they get to write the rules, and that doesn't mean that we can't play to win too. They are just very familiar with how it is. The book is really about awareness of how businesses kind of run. You may be familiar with things like scorecards and coaching and throwing the Hail Mary and all these sort of things. These terms are used continuously and they've been there for a long time. So I'm just trying to get people to understand how that is played. But as of right now, I am being public. I'm doing public speaking, and I have this author gig that I'm doing right now. Then after that, we'll just see what I want to do. I might just retire, but I have been in the business for about 20 years as a CEO, and I'm hoping that I can share some of my wisdom, if you will, today. So the topic is going to be the 5 C's of building momentum. And this is right from my book. So if you want to get anything further, you can definitely just go ahead and purchase it. I would love it. And those 5 things off the top are compassion, curiosity, communication, collaboration, and courage. So let's start with compassion, which is essentially really understanding how to work with all behaviors of people. I have written here, control your emotions and you control the narrative. Speak only with facts and acknowledge with feelings, or acknowledge their feelings. I'm sorry. So starting with control your emotions and you control the narrative. In many instances, people will automatically think, that women are too emotional. People can get really fired up. You may or may not have had someone just basically go toe to toe with you and yell or be accusatory or things like that. I always found that if you just kind of stayed even keel, responded to how they're responding without any sort of emotional attachment to it, that was really the best. For example, you could be in a meeting or on a board or something like that, and people might say, that's a crazy idea, or I just said that, or things like that. You automatically have to take all the air out of that response and respond in a way that speaks to the facts, speaks to the situation. And it could be things like, maybe I wasn't clear because not everybody listens. They can only hear maybe the half truth of things. So maybe I was not clear. I'm going to reiterate. I did not mean to upset you. Um, but just understand that in every circumstance, there is always a flow of emotion going on, and you don't know, as they say, where people are coming from. So it's kind of best just to kind of handle each person individually, control your emotions first, because that's the one thing that you can do. And again, then you can start controlling the narrative because sometimes people will say things because they do want to fire you up or get you upset. And it might be intentional or not, but they're trying to create some sort of shift. And the more that you can control yourself, the more that you get to control how the story is being told. Um, okay, go back, please. And the one way to do that is to speak just to the facts. Like, I said this, you responded with this. Um, Here's how I saw it. Here's how I understood it. If that's how I understood it was wrong, then, please explain it to me again. And then also acknowledge your feelings by saying things like, I understand why you're upset. Um, Maybe I wasn't clear. Um, things are getting heated right now. So just like I said, always kind of be in control. It's never typically personal. It's very rarely personal, I'll say, just because sometimes it is personal, but always just be factual and straightforward with people. And that's how you can gain compassion for others. Also, too, the way to show compassion too is if you're at a big meeting and you're seeing somebody who's trying to get in on the conversation, you could stop things and say, you know what, I think Karen had something to say, or I think Bob wanted to interject something, or something like that. So just really be aware of the temperature of the room. And like I said, if you can kind of control that, you get to control everything. Curiosity, one of my favorite things is because I am really hyper curious of other people, and I found that to be to my advantage. So when I would go to events or if I would meet new people, I always ask a lot of questions, not crossing the line of making it sound like it's, a mental dress down of any kind. But it is really just, trying to find common ground, a bond, something interesting that you can all talk about and show that you're basically in the game to play. You're here to make other fellow teammates. You're engaged, you're interested in others. So for me, when I would go out and network or and meet new people, hi, what brings you here today? Um, I happened to notice in the paper when online, I saw that you did this incredible thing. What is it that you do when you're not here? Things that are the ties that kind of bind us. I would find that and you can start very simply too. One of my icebreakers too was, you walk up to somebody, I really want to meet you. Oh, and by the way, did you need coffee as bad as I did today? That also triggers further conversation. Or, if how long have you been doing this? What really makes you excited to do your job? I love stories of how people kind of fell into their career, and I'll go to the way back. What did so is this where you thought you would end up when you were in college, or things like that? Things that are really general. And like I said, do it make it so it's not like an interrogation, but you really, really, really want to know more about this person. What's in those riches is that you start finding common grounds. You find out maybe a need that they might have, because usually it comes back to where what you want to what they do. So in your business, what problem do you solve? Oh, that's awesome. Well, for me, I solve this problem. Do you ever find that you need that sort of service? So I can use the example of the business I had before was Portfolio Creative, which was staffing and recruiting for creative people. So when it was my turn to talk, I would say, yeah, I help marketing departments find ideal people. And they would say, oh, well, how do you do that? Well, my company's Portfolio Creative. I started it, we'll say the time 15 years ago. And here's how we solve the problems for marketing. And I would kind of explain that. And they would say either yes or no, they need that service. I would say, well, if it's not you, do you know somebody else that would can help me? But you just start building bonds based on interests. And what is even most amazing is if you can find something that's super common ground, and then you can start digging into things. But just, I like to think of it as, almost throwing out a fishing line over and over again, like if you're fly fishing, and just trying to grab onto something that could be really kind of cool, that could expand your conversation. Um, but just a genuine, super curiosity about other people, I found is just like a gold mine as far as building relationships, building bonds, having advocates because now you know each other, you like each other. And also, too, I will also throw in on occasion, there's some people out there that are just completely boring and you don't need to hang out with them. But for the most part, um, I find it just fascinating to see how people got to where they are at this time of their life. Communication. Know your audience and speak to where they are. I'm sure we've all run into that person at events where they immediately come in and they're speaking at such a high level of knowledge that you have zero idea what they do. They're being a little show-offy, or they assume that you will know what they're talking about. And I was always taught when I did marketing that you kind of speak to a fourth grade level for everybody to understand. We could probably elevate that a little bit when we're having our conversations, but it's mostly just to make sure you kind of throw out a line to see if people are understanding what you're saying when you're referring to your business, you're trying to explain things. I have run into people that do, like, say, analytics, and they immediately start coming in with like all these data terms that I'm like, well, what is it that you actually do? So really break it down so where it's super simple for people to digest. And if you're finding that they are interested or they're, really understanding what you're saying, you can always elevate that to start throwing in some fancy terms. But I always found out that was like a huge turn off if people would just kind of come in and be like, what I can do. And the moment is completely lost. And it's a really kind of a way to kind of insult people really quickly in their intelligence because everybody out there is pretty smart. But just know that you start simple, level up when you're ready. And then the other way that I like to use communication is you use storytelling and really clear explanations of things. Um, we've always told stories since the beginning of time. People remember you by storytelling. So throwing in any sort of even a short, you know, um, anecdotal thing or an example of what you do helps people not only understand, but they also will remember what you do because you threw in some sort of really fun and amazing story. And especially if it's funny, if you know of a great funny story, if you know of a story that is almost slightly embarrassing to yourself, that's going to make them laugh, is also really good. People like to meet people that they like, they work with people that they like. So if you are being that level of compatible with your communication, that they will always reach back to you or remember you the next time that they see you. Collaboration, one of my favorites, and probably the one that people are kind of resistant to the most. Um, but what I found for me to grow the fastest was when I would delegate to others that had stronger skills than myself. So, for example, when I started my business partner and I did everything. Then I started delegating the things that I hated to do because they would just be such a drudgery. But then I would also find out that other people were better at it, which was also super helpful. And they can run faster if they really know what they're doing. Also, that allows you to work in a space where you are working at your best. You have to think about, like, if I'm the CEO of this company, and we'll just use simple numbers, and I'm making $100 an hour, I should not be, sending out the invoices. I should hire somebody who can work for maybe 25, 30 an hour that can handle this, maybe 40, just at least half the cost of what it takes you to do it. And that frees up your time to do other things. And delegation goes at all levels. So for me, I eventually got to the point where I could delegate my house cleaning I delegated my daughter to childcare. And I also had teams of people that could, step in if I was not able to pick her up in time or whatever. I delegated all the financial work away, like I said, the invoicing, the paperwork, a lot of the HR information. Just because for me to always be on top of the latest rules and regulations of HR, it was way easier for me to hand it to somebody who actually loved to do it. And they would also keep up on all the latest things. It's just a lot of information. And I find that a lot of people that own businesses tend to be almost too close to it. You definitely got to know what's going on in your company, but it's a matter of staying in touch with people, having those touch bases, going back to, my sports terminology, and letting them take the reins from there. And then again, really determine what you're best at. And there's definitely ways to think about it. You might determine, what you love to do the most. Where do you spend most of your time? If I could do this part of my job all day, you know that that's what you're best at. So for me, I was always best at doing things like this, doing networking, meeting with clients, being on that one-to-one, face-to-face sort of thing, and having somebody handle the details of the staffing part of it was best delegated. And there's people that on my team that absolutely loved it. So for me, for example, I would go out, meet a client, perhaps get to a point where we're okay, let's sign a contract. Great. I'm going to have my people call your people and they can sort it all out. But I got to do the fun part, or at least what was the fun part to me, and meet with people, make the deals, shake the hands, kiss the babies, that sort of thing, and then go and do it again the next day. And one of the things I really loved doing too was just collecting people for my own database. And that was just, again, for my really curiosity of other people. I want to just meet more and more people. And just that enthusiasm alone um, made it so I was more well known in the community. They knew what I was all about. They've at least everybody's met me once, sort of thing. And again, that sort of focus that I had was the one thing that was really a driver for growing my business. And also with collaboration, people automatically think, well, how am I going to help others? So that goes into volunteer opportunities. I'm going to say choose those wisely. I know a lot of people are really trying to get onto boards, either being volunteer or paid. Always understand what you're getting in for. There are working boards and there's non-working boards for one. And you may have to start out with a working board, which is totally fine. It's a great way to learn the ropes on how business works, but you will have to dedicate some time. But choose those wisely because you want to make sure you're doing something that kind of fulfills you in a way. For me, for example, I was doing day-to-day CEO stuff, but my heart was still with the arts and things like that. So I would be on boards for like the Greater Columbus Arts Council. Right now, I'm on the board for CCAD, which is the Columbus School of Art and Design. So to feed my soul in that regard, and I'm like, oh, if I could be here all the time or give you more time, call me because I love this. I've also been on boards where it was just like, oh, I got this board meeting coming up and it's just I don't like the people that I'm kind of wishy-washy on what the cause is. Um, for an example, not to make it sound like all causes are not awesome causes. I was on the board for the Blood Association, the Red Cross, sorry, Red Cross, but I wanted to be on the side that was with blood collection. I'm a very big donator with, giving blood and things like that. Then they decided to merge that board with the other board, which was about the rescue services, the Red Cross Rescue Service. And one of the stipulations on that was you had to actually attend or help out at some sort of Red Cross event. Now, I don't mind giving blood. I'll do it exactly when it is done. I will, endorse others. I will help at a blood drive. But when they were talking about having to attend maybe some sort of catastrophe, that was not my strength. I can handle things in a panic, but that makes my just automatically just even thinking about it just puts my nerves on end. I don't think I would be necessarily that great at it. There's some people that are really great at it. So for me, that volunteer opportunity did not turn into a good one after a while. So I ended up leaving that board. But there were, like I said, just choose those wisely because it should be something that you love. It should or could be something that you can meet other people. So if it's an opportunity where other people who could potentially be clients are on those boards, definitely give that a shot and then they could see how well you work. which was really kind of great. Be like, you know what, you run that board, so I know you're awesome. Let's have lunch. Let me see if I connect you with somebody. And those sort of relationships just kind of evolving very naturally. But as that sort of collaboration is definitely a great opportunity to build your database, to build your friendships and your responsibility. But again, just do it so it's not eating up too much of your time. Your first job is CEO of your own company, and those can be at times suck at times. So just be very, very careful on what you do, what committees you join, that it's all based in stuff that excites you or will grow you in some way. Courage. Okay. Eventually, if you want something, you have to be brave enough to go for it. And most of you are braver than you think. I like to think about it as thinking less about should I do it and move more towards how can I do it. There are, one example is, let's just say you're at an event and you see someone there that you want to meet. You're like, oh my God, am I brave enough to go over there? Do they really want to talk with me? Should I go? Forget about that. Stand there instead and think like, okay, how can I go over and meet that person that I really want to meet because I think I could really help them. I just want them to know that I'm in the room, that I am here for them, whatever. Start thinking in that sort of respect versus should you do it. I would think about, should I do this? Um, thank you for the note, Michelle. Um, should I do this? It's kind of like a dare. Not everybody wants to be dared to do things. Um, but if you're just thinking instead about how can I do it, that's a little bit different. So I want to meet, let's just say, the president, the CEO of Donato's Pizza. How can I do that? I posed that question to somebody who was on my advisory board at the time, and he had said to me, "Well, Catherine, you're the CEO of your own company, and he's the CEO of that company. Why wouldn't you go over there?" So it was really kind of entertaining to think for a moment, like, "Oh, wait a second, why don't I go over there?" So that's exactly how I started opening a lot of doors by meeting people by saying, "Hi, I'm Catherine. I really wanted to meet you because I love what you do in the community." I just want to introduce myself because I'm the CEO of Portfolio Creative, and we help people in marketing departments. More, and then go back to more about them. Um, but so it's a little easy, and you start building a nice cadence once you figure out your strategy, the how that you can do it versus the should you do it. That applies to freaking everything. If you how should rather than saying should I grow my company to this amount, think instead of how can I do that? Should I hire a person? Let's think about how I can fill this role. If you have a gap in your company, for example, you want to again go back to the delegating. Um, don't think necessarily about should I hire somebody? I don't know if I can afford them. I don't know what I need. Really start dictating in your own mind, how can I do this? Can I afford this person? And I have tips on whether or not you can afford people or not based on certain things. But can I afford this person? Do I even know what the job description is? How can I find a good job description? How can I figure out how much I should pay this person? How can I find somebody just in general? And just eliminate a lot of that should. I always feel like I said, it's a little bit where your toes are always on the line and you're leaning forward, rather than thinking about, "Well, if I did some training, I could probably run this race a lot easier." So be brave enough to take that step. Never think about what could possibly happen because that will also really cripple you. Um, I always would think about, okay, what's the worst that could happen? They would say no. If I hire somebody who doesn't work out, I'll just have to let them go. It's once you think it all the way through, it's not as scary. And I think some people just get really fearful of that unknown. And it's some chances that you just kind of have to take. A lot of it for me was always based in curiosity. People like to think that CEOs or people that start businesses are risk takers. I would debate that highly. I don't think I've ever really taken a risk in my life, but I've always had very calculated moves. So everything is pretty well thought out, and a lot of this is based on how can I do this? How can I do this? How can I do this? How can I get, even when I was employed with just regular companies, I'm working here. How can I work for that company? It's just a great mindset switch that you can throw that goes back more to strategy than to whether or not you have the courage to do something. I probably went really fast. I know I'm a fast talker. But if you have any questions or any questions in general, even about my book or CEO life or life after CEO life, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
This was so, so good. Thank you so very much for
Thank
all of
you.
these nuggets. Thank you for all of these little nuggets. Um, Please, ladies, if you're in the position to come on camera, let's chat. Let's have some dialogue and conversation, either with something that Catherine has shared or something that's just kind of burning in your mind. This we definitely have the time to be able to do that.
Well, I love that Michelle Uber kind of chimed in on with, oh my God, that's exactly what happened with us. So that's proof positive that I actually practice what I preach in this.
Yes, Teresa, go ahead.
So first of all, thank you so much. I needed this morning, so the stars aligned. I do have a question on the courage piece,
Yes.
and I love the way you framed that on the how. One of my longtime clients has asked me to do something that I'm I'm definitely feeling a little uncomfortable doing. I feel like it's out of my league. So how do you decide, number one, should you go investigate? I'm going to set that question aside and figure out how to do it, or this really isn't in my lane. How do you do that discernment?
I ask myself, do I really want to do this? And there is a little bit of that people pleasing aspect that women have that we're like, you know what, I will figure out, or even a mom, sort of sense of thinking where you're like, what can I do to help this person? I can figure this out. We love that we're the best at problem solving more than anything else, and we want to make that client happy. And I would typically say, you know what, this is really not in my wheelhouse. Now, if you want me to do this, I will probably have to hire some help and it will cost you a little more, or I can maybe help you find somebody that can do this for you. But my specialization is this. And to use kind of an example, when we did staffing and recruiting, it was just for people in marketing space. But occasionally we would have somebody say, do you know somebody who could be an admin in a marketing department, for example? I mean, it's kind of close, but we really didn't know people that were admin. But we would say, you know what, we'll look, if we have somebody, we'll send them over, but that's really not what we do. And typically they understand. They understand. And sometimes people might be like, you know what, Teresa, I trust you and I want you to do it. You know what? There's nothing wrong with making a little more money by hiring somebody or whatever, and just say, I can manage this for you, but here's how it's going to work, and you can tell them how much it's going to cost. That may be a deterrent. But if you can even delegate something that you don't love doing and make money, I mean, I think that's kind of cool too. So you just have to kind of figure out, do you want to be known for this thing now? Is it a long-term client that you just really, really want to help and they're desperate? And then just decide if this is what you want to do. I've been asked, for example, to be on certain boards, and they were like, we have a board opening, and it starts in October. Usually the litmus test too is like you might immediately say, "Oh, October, sure, I'm sure my schedule will be clear by then." Always ask yourself that question. Well, what if you didn't start doing it tomorrow? Would you want to do it? And in some of those cases, they'd be like, no, I have absolutely no interest in doing that. So you just have to kind of regulate, no, is this what I want to do? Because you don't want to start painting yourself in the corner where you're stuck with something, you're not good at it, it fails. But if they could be, adjust a little bit and just say, here's how we can do it, I think that's totally fine. Or automatically might just have to say, we work for together and this is really, and I would not feel comfortable doing this for you because there are other people that are better at it.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Because you gave me
Absolutely.
an idea that maybe collaboration is the answer there. So,
Hmm.
so that begs the question, how do you know when you should stretch yourself or when you should say, no, thank you, that's not in my wheelhouse? So that's the question. Should you stretch
Hmm.
yourself or should you not? I mean, I think
Is it
that's
Is this
yeah.
something that you would like to get into? Because there's sometimes too where that could be an opportunity for you to expand your services too. It's like, I've always wanted to do this, and this is a great opportunity for you to try it. I can tell you right now, if you don't love doing it, you're not going to do it well. A
Yeah.
person I used to have on my advisory board was John Lowe with Jenny's Ice Cream, and as you know, or many of you may know, was a CEO of that company. When it was starting out, they gave him a list of stores to call. We want to get these in stores. Here's your list. We, divide and conquer. He did not make one call, not one call. He goes, because I hate doing that. I hate calling people and I hate asking them, to do me this favor of getting this ice cream there. But so I ended up hiring a junior person to do it, and they loved making cold calls. They saw it as some sort of a freaking challenge. And he knew at that point, regardless of everybody's in on this, he knew he would never do the things that he didn't like to do. So if it's something that kind of, tickles your fancy, or you're thinking like, oh, you know what? We don't like, for us, we might get an example of, need to find somebody out in California, for example, which we did once and it was a horrible experience. But because of all the rules and regulations in California that are just so different than how they are here for staffing people. Anyway, um, like let's just try it. Maybe we're gonna take this company national because now we can place people anywhere. Certain states it worked out great with, other ones it was a complete failure. But it was, a choice that you make just to kind of try something almost on somebody else's offer, like on their dime. Um, and you could just kind of see if you want to do it. But I'm just telling you, if you don't love it, you're gonna be hating it.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
Yeah, that's so, so good. And I think I saw Michelle. Michelle, did you have your hand up earlier? Okay. I think
I
that's so,
did, but
so good. And I
the
think,
question was answered, or the
Well, the thing
topic.
about that too, I'm going to say as well is like, if you are starting to go down that road to do something else, where's that time coming from? If you're trying to learn a new thing, you're obviously going to be giving some time away from something you're really, really good at and now dedicating it to something else. So is it worth that sort of trade-off?
Can I chime in?
yeah,
Hello.
go right ahead.
Um, if I had a word for 2025 for my business, it would be partnerships. So I don't know if other people have noticed this, but I feel like in my little corner of the world, one of the ways that us women business owners are reacting to the throwing out of DEI and getting rid of our WEBE certifications and stuff has been to be far more open to partnerships. So to your original question, Teresa, I think thinking where my head goes now, which literally you go back to look before last summer and it's not where my head would have gone, is where can I build a partnership to add that offering? Have other people found that? Are other people having this same experience, this openness to partnering among other women business owners?
Go ahead, Michelle.
Um, I have been meeting one-on-one with a lot of women business owners or women in leadership roles and things like that to I like making connections and things like that. And so we have been doing a lot of who do you know? How can we partner with them? How can we make introductions? So we've been on a real big a big push more recently to work with others and for sharing our elevator pitches so that we can do more collaboration. It's a great feeling, first of all, even if it's slow moving as opposed to broadcasting more widely. It's slow moving, but it helps to build those better connections and better clients over the long run, and that is where we want to be as part of our mission statement or vision.
The comments that I have about partnerships, because we did have a couple, they can either be the best thing ever or sometimes the worst thing ever. And it is imperative that you are absolutely positively clear on what the relationship is. For us, because we were a smaller company and super specialized, we would sometimes have to partner with other staffing companies that did a more broad scope of search. And we're like, okay, here's the deal, the partnership. We're going to partner with you, and we want all the marketing jobs. What we did find out in some cases that they would try and fill them first, and then if they couldn't do it, then we would get to do the search. So we were like, well, wait a second, I thought we were getting all of them. Like, well, we have a full team here, so we thought we'd give it a shot. But you're getting most of them. Um, that wasn't really what we thought, and I don't know if we were that specific, but sometimes those relationships can kind of change. We had a relationship with Adecco, for example, which I thought for sure we were going to get mowed down. They were so disinterested in all the marketing roles that they said, absolutely, you can have them all. and we did not have any issue with them whatsoever. So it's just really be really sure to be clear on, what the relationship is. Is it a company that you feel that you can trust? Is it worth just taking a chance with it? But in the best sort of partnerships I like to think about are what I refer to as the champions that you find in your life. In my book, I have two different categories of people. One are the cheerleaders, and ones are the champions. The cheerleaders are the ones that are the "you go girl, you got this" sort of thing, and it's your tribe that is always encouraging. They're with you in the march. The champions are the ones that open doors for you. So if you're out networking, for example, and you're meeting with certain people, and you're asking, you have a good relationship and say, you know what, I know that you work with this other company. Would you be able to recommend mine to work in there? That's a great sort of partnership to have, and having somebody basically walk you into a company and get you that opportunity. So it doesn't always have to be a formal partnership, but just having collaborations of you work there, you think you can help me, I'll try and get you in here, or I'll make this introduction and you can take it from there, which was my favorite because I never wanted to necessarily be completely responsible for explaining what somebody else had to do. Just say, I think somebody I know can help you. Would you be receptive for me to connecting you? So even that's even tiny, tiny partnerships are also super beneficial.
It's so very true, and something that we're seeing, especially with a lot of our WBEs, not only in partnering so that you don't have to do some of the things that you don't want to do, but also being able to partner, creating those partnerships so that you can work with even larger clients that potentially you may
Exactly.
not be in the
Yeah.
position to be able to do, which is a subtle plug for one of the events that we have coming up. Actually, in April, we actually have a free webinar for our certified WBEs. It is open to everyone to attend, where we're talking about strategic partnerships and joint ventures, and how to navigate those and how to protect yourself even in those types of situations. Because it's not just like, oh, Catherine and I are really great friends, and so now we're going to do this work together. It's a whole nother business thing too, right? So we want to make sure that you all are protecting yourselves as you're aligning forces to be able to make yourself put yourself in a better position to expand or to move into a new area or whatever that case may be. So if it's not on the upcoming event slide that we'll talk about, I'll make sure I drop that information in. You'll see our
Yeah,
post about it as well.
I was going to say the exact same thing, that sometimes to get some of those larger contracts, you have to form these partnerships. And again, just make sure that that partner is a trustworthy person and you're all understanding what you need to do. But that is exactly how WeBank works, and trying to get everybody together so we can get those better deals.
So good. What else? What other thoughts or things are burning on your mind right now?
It can be something completely not on any of the slides.
Exactly. This is what this is about. This is open dialogue and conversation for whatever it is, definitely.
Well, then if we have a minute, I will plug my book.
Yes, let me share my screen.
And if
That's
you
fine.
if you go to KatherineLangKlein.com, there's a pop-up that um, will direct you to either Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Yeah, there is the QR code, and it like I said, it's essentially everything I learned in the 20 years of being a CEO, and actually some of it beforehand. It talks about imposter syndrome. It talks about the voices in our head sometimes that tell us not to do things, or we're only good enough to do some things. It talks about, like I said, cheerleaders and the champions, about partnerships, about mentoring. It talks about how to get into the room, how to have successful meetings if you're kind of the wallflower, or how do you get in the game as far as, speaking up in meetings. One of the examples that I use, and the reason like I said, I spoke chose the sports theme of it is like that's when everything kind of clicked for me, when I realized all these people are doing business and everybody's speaking in terminology that is sports related of some kind. So if I can just know that going in, I don't have to speak sports ball myself, but if I know that that is how it works with teams and trust and people basically picking the people that they want on their team or want to hang out with based on how much they can contribute to the sport of it, That's kind of the key to all of this. And, that goes back to, I talk about, showing up, how to show you're ready to play. In meetings, for example, women will say, I don't like being talked over, interrupted, or things like that. If you switch your thinking and think that this is just like basketball, for example, and everybody's trying to steal the ball, or hockey, they're trying to steal the puck. That's what a meeting is, especially with guys where they are just all over each other, just trying to get credit because whoever has the ball or the puck is the one that gets the score. So if you know that that's how we're going to play this, then I'm going to fight to get the ball back, to be perfectly honest. So if somebody's running on a tangent on an idea I have, you can jump in whenever you want and feel free to just, slightly step on, do some stepping on toes of people, a little bit of interrupting, saying, you know what, I love what you're saying. And I love that you were able to build on my idea or something like that, kind of bring it back to yourself. But if you know that everybody's in there throwing elbows, you got to think like, okay, this is how I have to mentally prepare for this too. And it goes like that for everything. And it's about not being the last kid on the playground getting picked. You show up, in your skates or your cleats and in the right attire, in the right uniform, and then people know that you're there to play and they're going to want you on the team. And that's how the flow starts as far as advancing you further and farther up into the room, onto the board, getting the awards and things like that.
I have a funny anecdote I can share. Can I
I
share a
love
funny
it.
anecdote?
Go right ahead.
So, I'm in IT. I worked for the company that back
A
in the
man's
day,
world, baby.
back in the day when I was, oh yeah, it's always me and the guys. I'm used to me and the guys. Um, I'm a mathematician, so yeah, it's always been me and the guys. So back in the day, I was early 30s, mid 30s, and I worked for the company that built Segway.
Mm.
Remember Segway?
Mhm.
This is pre-Segway. I actually put the product development process in place that they used at the company to develop Segway.
Oh, awesome.
So I was in charge. I had my meetings. So I had meetings, right? And I had a rule. So it was the head of every department had to be in these meetings as we figured out the process that we were going to use to work together to create products, including Segway. So, and if anybody couldn't show up, the meeting got canceled. No substitutions. It had to be the heads of the departments. They were all young guys, mostly MIT graduates with post whatever degrees. And it was like a sorority. I mean, a fraternity in there with me and the boys. They would play basketball they'd crumple things up and they're having things. And this was right when Viagra came out. Oh my God. It would be me and all the men. And I was having to corral them and come on. All right, boys, let's get there. And it's just, anyway, it was just brought up that funny memory of me and the men. But what was funny was I did it that was the 2 years that I wore dresses and skirts to work every day because I was the only female. You don't have to become them to play with them.
Right. But it's about just understanding how they're wired. Like
Yeah.
they're acting like this because, and
Right.
how am I gonna counter that? And you could just kind of
Yes.
come in with a whistle as the ref
Exactly.
and just
So I
say,
didn't
you know
take
what?
any. Yeah.
Let's play. It's time to go.
If I'd walked in and I had felt this, and I don't know how to put it. I didn't walk in and ever feel disrespected.
Yeah.
Although I could have
And
taken
it's
that
not
tack. That's not what was going on. They were just being them.
exactly. And I think that's even a good example of how sometimes I would treat a lot of the people that I knew. I mean, they're like VPs and leaders, just like they're my brothers or something. And we've all known guys and brothers and what have you. And but just know that that's what's going to get their attention. That's going to let them know, you know what, I'm just like you. I want to be treated with the same sort of respect. But yeah, it's so simple that, like I said, if you just kind of speak the language, how much that can shift. And I'm just having such great visions of that room.
Fun days. Fun
Yeah, oh,
days.
exactly. You're walking there like, oh Lord, here we go. And it's boys. So
Yeah.
Well, I decided I'd turn my camera on because I loved what you said, Catherine, about I'm here to play. So I figured I'd better show up and say I'm here to play. but more than that, I love how every time I hear you talk about this, you bring out something new and something, some other little nugget. So thank you so much for sharing all these. I wrote several things down.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here today, Karen.
so thank you.
You are welcome. You are welcome.
Just be careful when you pass me the ball, because just because I'm 6'1" doesn't mean I'm good at the basketball.
Oh, I'm sure
we'll just put you under the net and have you put your hands up, right?
Yeah, that's
so
right.
It's not about everybody doesn't have to play. We're gonna put you in the right position.
Somebody actually in a store one time asked me, to reach something up on the top shelf. Somebody pretty short, and so I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'll grab this. She goes, "You must have played basketball in school." And I said,
no.
And you must have played miniature golf. Oh, wow.
That's funny.
It was. She laughed, fortunately.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yes, it's all about using our strengths to our advantage.
Yeah, and I love that, because I almost think of like even the anecdote of somebody like throws something at you really quick, like a question, and you respond with, "Oh, wait, you threw the ball at me a little fast." They're like, "Oh, she gets it." It's crazy how close we are to just really understanding ourselves in a business environment.
Very much so. We've got a little bit more time. Any other thoughts before I roll into my wrap up stuff? Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
That hit home as well. You threw the ball at me too fast. I've learned with time. I just have to be aggressive, and I'm a processor, and I have to say, sorry, you don't see the wheels turning, but you might start seeing smoke. Give me a minute. So
yeah, I mean, you can say, yeah, threw the ball at me too fast. I'm a processor, so now that I have it, let me just give me a minute to figure out what my next play is. I mean, like I said, they'll want to marry you at that point.
All right. Final thoughts, Catherine. Any final thoughts?
Oh, my final thoughts is, of course, if you you know how to get hold of me. Like I said, everything and I know, or just about everything I know, is in the book. I did this as a favor to all the women that I've known through WeBank, through all the groups I belong to, all the memberships I've had, and people asking me or thinking that, I was risky or brave at all times. Growing up, and especially in high school, I was very much of an introvert, and it was through a lot of just observation and learning from others that I appreciate to this day, and people helping me get into the room, that I wanted to, again, share this wisdom with others. So hopefully that can kind of fast track some things, give you a different way of looking at something. For example, see maybe where you're kind of falling short a little bit. It's like, okay, I'm going to try this and see if it works. So my hope is that everybody gets to, kind of learn a little something, get a little nugget, and get a little better in the game.
Perfect. Wonderful. So good. Thank you so very much, Catherine, for your time and your willingness to pour yourself out to the ladies that are here, as well as those who may be watching this recording at a later time as well. So we definitely thank you for that. And thank you, ladies, for joining. Before I let you all go, I'm going to share my screen again for just a couple of things. So if you've done anything here at WeBank ORV, the next thing I want to do is ask for you to complete a survey for us. So if you are not watching this on your phone, if you have the ability to pull out your phone and scan this QR code, if you are not in the position to be able to scan this QR code right now, that's fine. You will receive a recap email that includes a copy of the deck, as well as that includes a copy of the recording, and it will have a link to this exact same survey. So all that I ask is, regardless of whether you do it now or whether you do it later, I would just love for you to do it. And so that way we're able to give Catherine any feedback that we may get for her, as well as we can, it provides me with information. So that way, as I continue to create these coffee breaks and fulfill the needs of you all as our WBEs and our other programming, that's where I get that information from. So please take a moment to fill that out. And then in talking about, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, and you pulled it up. I'm like, I should have just, why am I talking?
You
Sorry.
go back?
No, I want to see, The next session I'm interested in, the one about partnering and how you strategically
Oh, gotcha. Okay, let me grab that link because it's not on here because we just finalized and I think it just got promoted yesterday. So let me grab that link really quickly. So what you see on the screen here is these are our upcoming events in the rest of March. So as certified WBEs, you can participate in our Doing Business series. We do have one with KeyBank coming up on March 11th. We have our first WB Connect of the year that is going to be in Cleveland on March 18th. That is also a busy week because March 19th is our Prelude Party, which is the kickoff event for Bold and Brilliant, which is our conference for women of color and allies on March 20th. That is in Columbus. So if you have not already registered for that, I would love to see you there. I did just drop a link into the chat for the business development series. That is on April the 8th, same day as Doing Business with Ohio Health. Ohio Health is going to be at 11. The Navigating Strategic Partnerships is at 3 o'clock, so it's in the afternoon. If you click the link to, if you scan this QR code, it's going to take you to the events page on our website, and you can register for all of our events. You can find everything there as well. But I did drop that link into the chat. And yes, Michelle, thank you so much for that subtle plug. Michelle has definitely been at several of our Bold and Brilliant events. It is definitely worth your time. And I don't say that because I plan it. I say it because I thoroughly enjoy it. It is a really dynamic opportunity to learn about a variety of different things. I like to say that one of the perks of being the director of programs and events is that I can curate experiences that answer questions that I have. And this year, our Bold and Brilliant is going to have more of a like health and wellness type of a lens to it. So we're talking about, and I don't know how old you all are, however, we're talking about a lot of things surrounding the things that go on with our bodies, right? Like peri and minnow and all of those kind of things, and how that also impacts who we are and who we bring to our business or to our workplace each and every day. And so I'm excited about that part, if for no other reason. I'm excited to see everybody in person, but I'm definitely excited about the focus of that. And Teresa, I'm sorry that you'll miss Bold and Brilliant. Tell them to move their event.
Well, Zulene talked it up so much last year. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to go this year. And then I've got a client event all day. So I'm like, are you kidding me? So Zulene really was like, it was so awesome, like off the charts. So
yes. Well, next year, definitely. I don't know when we'll have the date out, but next year, definitely. Hopefully you'll be able to navigate around and be able to meet us there. And Michelle, yes, this Prelude Party this year is going to be so awesome. We actually have the opportunity to create our own, I know I don't want to tell you, but create our own custom fragrance. So we're going to have a perfume bar that's going to be on site. And it's always really great networking and music and just a really fun time as a kickoff. So that's definitely something that's fun. If you are available, you can purchase a Prelude Party ticket for free if you want to come hang out with us Thursday evening. But yes, Bold and Brilliant itself is on March the 20th. So I'm sorry, Michelle, that you'll miss that this year. Okay, what else do I have? We just talked about
like I want to go and try and create a fragrance that smells like excellence.
You should. You should.
Forget the flowers and the trees. I would like to smell like excellence.
I think you should. So have you ever done a perfume bar before?
I have not. I'm very kind of intrigued by this.
I did it at Nationals for the first time. There was a vendor there. It's not the vendor that we have for our event, but there was a vendor there at Nationals. And I'm not a huge fragrance wearer. And I'll admit my rational mind was really struggling with this concept of smelling all these separate things and trusting that it was going to come together and be like something beautiful in the end. But it was, and it's my favorite. Like I've got a couple of fragrances. It's my favorite one to wear. And I don't know why, but nice. it came out perfectly with the guidance of, the instructor who's helping and guiding, like, oh, you might want to think of these two instead of those two, right? But it was such a really fun experience. to be able to walk away and know that one, nobody else really smells like me. Because as you know, when we put on our fragrances, they're going to change based on our chemistry anyway. So even if we
Right,
made the
right.
exact same one, it's still going to smell a little bit differently. But to know that this bottle sitting on my dresser is something that I created,
For you, yeah,
is kind of cool as well.
exactly.
So yes, definitely. If you're able to come out Thursday, if you can't join us Friday, if you're able to come out on Thursday, I'm going to drop the link into the chat for Bold and Brilliant, and you can register for any parts of it via this link as well. Next big things that we have coming up here at Webeck ORV. On May 13th is our Women of Distinction Awards. So this is a new awards luncheon that we're doing this year. It's an opportunity for us to truly recognize and celebrate some of our WBEs. That is going to be in Cincinnati. And then Catch the Wave, of course, you should already have this on your calendar, but if you do not, it is August 24th and 25th, and we will be in Louisville this year. And so I'm excited. It's my first time in Louisville. So I'm excited to be going to Louisville and doing all of the fun things in Louisville this year. So please make sure you mark it on your calendars so that you can join us at one of our upcoming events. That's all that I have. Any final thoughts or questions or anything like that? Yes, Michelle.
I just wanted to, I thought I heard you say that if you can't make it, because I know somebody that can't make it to the Bold and Brilliant, that they can come to the,
Prelude party.
and then they'll register same as,
So if you click the link, when they go in, they will now see, if they looked at it before today, they wouldn't have seen it. But if you look at it today, you will see a link that says Prelude, or you will see an option that says Prelude Party Only. So instead of clicking that they're a certified WBE or whatever for the conference, click that Prelude Party Only, and that should take them in so that way they can purchase that Prelude Party ticket.
okay, that I'm just curious because, somebody wants to kind of dip their toes into the experience without
Yes.
necessarily attending everything or whatever. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. Yep. They can definitely do that. Any other questions? This was so good. I love this little cute little small group. Not little, but you know what I mean. And Michelle had put that in the chat earlier, having this small group, it really made for some really great conversations. So thank you, ladies, just for taking a little bit of time out of your morning and spending some time with us during our coffee break. And I look forward to seeing you at one of our upcoming events. Have a great rest of